so to see all of you tonight. Thank you for coming out in the cold and the dark and the damp. And it's terrific to have you here. This and stuff. This is the 9th annual Women's Conference and Forum, which we originally intended to hold in the fall of 2025 until the government was shut down for 7 weeks. So thank you for adapting. And I really appreciate your patience. We probably have all kinds of locally elected leaders here, but at least one is Arlington School Board, Zariah Tapia Hadley, right here. Yeah, our theme this year is resilience. And I want to talk about that for a minute because before I recognize our amazing award winner and turn over the conversation to this really interesting, impressive panel we have, just because it would be easy to drown in sorrow and rage amid all the terrible things that are happening to our country right now. Every time I turn on the TV or get another blast, there's an element of despair. And we've all seen the image of what's happened in Minneapolis. We've seen it with the murder of Renee Good. The occupation of DC has been awful. Los Angeles and other cities have been targeted by administration that's using federal agents to sow division and fear. And what's happening right now every day in Minneapolis is a major and frightening escalation. I don't know how many times we can see peaceful law-abiding citizens asked to see their papers, they're dragged from their cars or body slammed or in a worst case shot before we conclude that this is not making us safer. The cruelty actually seems to be the point. And we've got this wannabe dictator in the White House who promises to stop endless wars and solves 8 wars and end inflation. And it turns out angering every ally we have. We have these senseless tariffs and threatening to attack or invade many countries than you can count on one hand. And I voted against the big ugly bill. It was the biggest cut to American healthcare in history to fund the biggest tax cut for the wealthiest in history. And a lot of the people in our country are getting hit hard, and not just in the poorer rural areas. Our region, which has largely been recession-proof for most of my business career, is getting hit harder than almost anyone else. The number of federal employees and federal contractors who lost their jobs permanently often. The regional unemployment rate has been rising every month, month by month by month. And you can feel it in the restaurants that are closing, the hair salons and barbershops that have half the business. You see it in an awful lot of places. And this isn't even personal enough, because it's not just job numbers and jobs and money, it's all the people who've been devastated. You know, we've had a number of these resilience forums, job fairs, and the like to come. And I've spent hours talking to people one-on-one. And what I hear again and again is that not only have they seen their livelihoods evaporate, their workplaces shuttered, but worst of all, they're denied the opportunity to serve American people, to do the job they wanted to do all their lives that help everybody across the country. And in the case of USAID, people all around the world. And if you're at the Department of Education, it means that kids with special ed needs aren't getting the treatment that they deserve. If you're in foreign humanitarian assistance, just read Nick Kristof 2 or 3 times a week about the hundreds of thousands of people who've died already because we shut down USAID. And I could dwell on this at length, but the idea of tonight was not to talk about the darkness, but to talk about the resilience. It's been not quite a year since Donald Trump was sworn in, but the number one question that I get every day, and that the wonderful interns who answer all of our phones get every day, on all the incoming emails, 120,000 so far this year, is number one, what are you doing? And number two, what can I do to fight that? How can I step up and resist in a meaningful way? And when I feel really good about it. We've been to a bunch of the food pantries recently, and they're bursting with food and with volunteers. They need it because the food pantries are 50% more than they were during COVID, which is the all-time high. You see it in the events for support for federal workers. And many, many people showed up just to try to contribute. I keep coming back to the central message. At the bottom, until we take back control of the House and of the Supreme Court and of the Senate, until we get a new governor on Saturday, that how we get through this is to be the best mothers and fathers and sons and daughters and brothers and sisters and community leaders that we can possibly be. The stronger we make things at home, not just our address, but in the communities in which we live, the better we're able to resist. Because together, we as Americans who believe in freedom and diversity and justice and peace are stronger than any cheap authoritarian and his stooges who think they can rule by fear. We have people in the community volunteering their time to help the needy, help ensure children and seniors have food and eat, places to live, their neighbors safe. And we're going to be pleased tonight to have some of those wonderful leaders on the stage with us to talk about what they're doing. You're showing up to rallies and demonstrations. It's been terrific to see the No Kings, for example. You're showing up at the ballot box. We had a special election 2 days in Alexandria. We showed up at 8:30 and the line was half an hour long for something that had 2 days worth of, it was incredibly remarkable. And I can't wait to drive down to Richmond Saturday morning to swear in the first governor in 400 years of woman government, Virginia. We are a resilient community, we're a resilient country. We faced a lot of hard times before. Just think what our grandparents and our parents have gone through. We will get through this. But it's with optimism and hope that, back to Martin Luther King, the moral arc of history is long and it bends towards justice. It doesn't bend by itself. We have to be the ones that are bending it. Every year I try to honor my terrific grandmother, Claire Mortensen Beyer, who was one of 2 women to graduate from Berkeley in 1915. Taught at Bryn Mawr in Columbia, was recruited by Felix Frankfurter, but she was the person given credit for recommending Frances Perkins to FDR to be the first woman cabinet secretary. And she was Frances's right hand for those 12 years. I talked to Frances Perkins' biographer 6 months ago, Sydney, who read all the papers and said the only reason that my grandmother wasn't the deputy secretary because they couldn't have 2 women at the top of the Department of Labor. And she lived in 98. It was so cool. She lived to see me actually elected to office. So then she said she could not. Anyway, previous 2 awardees have been Congresswoman Jennifer Wexton, Deputy Secretary of Veterans Affairs Tanya Bradsher, the first woman ever to be Deputy Secretary there, Dr. Tahira Ahmadi, journalist Marie Ritter, gun violence prevention advocate Naomi Wadler, rock climber Sasha DeJulian, who has a new Netflix special out, by the way, Climbing in the Yosemite, diplomat Peggy King, Peace Women founder Ruth Gabi Vermont, journalist Lisa Feldman, Arlington community activist Portia Clark, and immigration advocate Ophelia Calderon. We thought long and hard, thank you for giving on, about how best to honor the awardee this year. And we thought the most symbolically important thing we can do is to honor Nancy Eslick, who most recently served as Senior Deputy Administrator to the Administration of Resilience, Environment, and Food Security Bureau at USAID. So since joining USAID in 2001, she's dedicated her career to serve vulnerable communities around the globe. She's held key leadership directors roles, including Mission Director in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Cambodia, and Jordan, Global Water Coordinator, Deputy Assistant Administrator for Private Sector Donor Coordination in Europe and in the Eurasia Bureau. In February 2025, no surprise, Nancy was one of thousands of USAID employees who showed up for work and were locked out of the office. They couldn't even get the things out of their desks. They were the very first victims of Donald Trump's illegal attacks on the agency. And that loss of expertise and dedication, the loss of so many of her colleagues in the foreign and civil service, will do lasting damage to people around the world and extraordinary damage to our reputation as a country, to our extraordinary vision of ourselves as that shining city on the hill. Not to mention an enormous gift to China and to Russia. And it means fewer children with safe water, fewer women with access to resources that allow them to thrive, fewer communities with the tools needed for weather, for economic conflict, for natural disasters. So honoring Nancy is just a natural celebration of her celebratory and extraordinary service, but and all the people who served at USAID and the tragedy of the Foreign Service officers. But it's also an urgent reminder that USAID's mission has not gone away. It's only getting more and more important as the world gets less stable. So I'm passionate about that. I gave a speech on the House floor last night about the demolition of USAID. And with my wonderful team, we'll continue to do everything we can that begins to restore the status quo on foreign assistance. Nancy's 2+ decades of leadership at USAID has also made a reminder of the profound difference that USAID has made, the American leadership has made around the world. Will you please welcome Nancy Essling to the stage.
Thank you, Congressman Beyer, for the tremendous honor of being this year's recipient of the Clara Mortensen Beyer Women and Children's First Award. The award honors your grandmother who broke barriers for women. She successfully advocated for Frances Perkins to become the first female U.S. cabinet member. She then joined the International Cooperation Administration, which later became USAID. There, she crafted how the U.S. viewed overseas economic conditions until her retirement in 1972. In that same year, 1972, I was born. The dedication to service and the inspiration of your grandmother's work and of that of so many women like her to help elevate women and children shaped an entire generation. Our generation, myself included. This moment and this award, it honors so many people because success is not achieved alone. It comes through teamwork, cooperation, and clear vision not bound by constraints. I accept this award on behalf of the 14,000 USAID employees globally. On behalf of our partners who collaborated with us to advance gender equality and women's empowerment in Afghanistan, in Jordan, and in so many other places, and on behalf of the thousands of career USAID staff that served before us, like your grandmother. Thank you to my colleagues, many of whom are here today. Thank you for teaching, challenging, supporting, and showing me what it means to be part of something that's bigger than myself. What I can say is that your work matters, and it will continue to have an impact, a multiplier effect, expanding well beyond the walls of government. This will be one of USAID's enduring legacies. For over 6 decades, USAID transformed lives across more than 100 countries, ending extreme poverty, promoting stability in fragile regions, and creating economic opportunities that changed the trajectory of entire nations. It also helped build allies, expand markets, and create soft power for the United States. This happened because of USAID. Because we brought polio to the brink of elimination, prevented the deaths of millions of women and children, provided HIV/AIDS treatment to over 25 million people, delivered food and medicine in post-conflict zones, and distributed over 700 million COVID vaccines globally, to name just a few things. We lifted tens of millions of people out of extreme poverty by transforming agriculture, by educating girls, by bringing water and electricity to communities for the first time. These are lasting impacts. And they were achieved through teamwork and an unwavering dedication to service. The commitment to service does not end when someone leaves government. As we look to the future, thousands of federal workers will continue to serve our communities and our country. In nonprofits, in the private sector, academic institutions, and as volunteers. This recognition today acknowledges a truth that USAID championed for decades. Investing in women and children is not just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. Dedication to service takes on many forms. This includes serving in our communities and educating the next generation. The NGO leaders who will speak tonight are doing just that. They're investing in the women and children of Northern Virginia. They have clear visions of a future, not bound by constraints. They are this generation's change agents, like your grandmother was for my generation. Thank you, Congressman Beyer, for honoring the impact of USAID.
We're very lucky to have Nene Diallo, another USAID veteran, to manage the conversation tonight. And Nene, let me turn this over to you and get out of the way.
Can you please give Congressman Don Beyer a big round of applause? Thank you, Congressman, for continuing to center the voices of women and women. We need it. Thank you for your tireless effort on behalf of your constituents in the great state of Virginia and for fighting for the rights of all Americans across the United States. Thank you. All right, bear with me. I was also born in 1972 and I named glasses. As I call our marvelous panelists to the stage one by one, I will also introduce them briefly. If I can please have Ms. Brooke Seidner-Kura, President and CEO of Move to Learn, an award-winning nonprofit that transforms how students learn by bringing movement into every part of the school day. Thank you, Brooke. And if Ms. Lisa Jacobs could join me, Executive Director of Alexandria Studio and Portrait. Lisa is a former congressional employee and long-term volunteer in the public schools with extensive experience leading organizations, recruiting, and managing volunteers, raising money and forming partnerships within the Alexandria community. Lisa has been at the helm of ATC since 2018. And next, if I could please have Elizabeth Jones Valderrama, Executive Director of Offender and Rehabilitation, otherwise known as OER. OER is a community-based nonprofit organization that envisions a safe and thriving community where those impacted by the legal system enjoys equal civil and human rights. Through their upstream work, they are confronting and dismantling individual racism and racism in the legal system and across all systems. And last but definitely not least, Zoraya Takmi-Hadley. Zoraya is the Executive Director of the DREAM Project and member of the Arlington Public Schools Board. Thank you so much. Another round of applause, please. Congressman Don Beyer, can you please join us on the stage? Thank you very much. So the way this is going to work, I'm going to ask a first question to our panelists, and then I'm going to go to the audience for some engaging Q&A discussion. Are we okay with that? Yes? All right. And again, in the spirit of hope, turn our phones off, silence them. We don't need the alerts, the CNN, the breaking news, etc. Let's enjoy this next hour where we're going to be talking about hope and resilience. Thank you. All right. So, question for the panel. I'm going to start with Lisa. How have recent administration actions or policies affected your organization, And what personal or professional strategies have you found most effective for maintaining resilience during these times?
Tonight, I am honored to be on this panel with these amazing women. You still can't hear me? Can you hear me? All right, I'm so sorry. I run Alexandria Tutoring Consortium. We, in a nutshell, I have 325 volunteers who help 300 kids learn how to read kindergarten through second grade in the Alexandria City Public Schools. We have very fortunately not been affected by the administration funding-wise, and I know I'm really lucky in that. Our people have been affected. I just heard yesterday, we have a first grade girl who has started acting up. Her dad got deported last week, and they are now unhoused, and she is supposed to sit there with her little friends learning how to read. And we're there for her. Her teachers are amazing, but that's what our kids are up against. From a volunteer perspective, thank you. From the volunteers' perspective, we lost a lot of volunteers a year ago when people had to return to work. They lost their flexible schedule. And then when our amazing federal employees and contractors started losing jobs, we did pick some people up as volunteers who were retirees, but we also have people coming. You can just see the turmoil in our communities. People who want to volunteer, but they don't know if their job's going to change, et cetera. So we've definitely felt it. The resilience, and I'll probably come back to this later, but I would say put your phones away, get out of your head and go out and help somebody. I think that's the only way we're going to get through this. And this is probably a very self-selected group that comes to a Congressional Women's Congress on a cold January night. I bet you're pretty civically minded as it is. But I would say volunteer, and it helps the community. It pick up some trash, help a child learn how to read, work the front desk at the homeless shelter, figure it out. But it helps you too. And there is scientific proof that getting out and being socially engaged is what it helps you. It hits off your oxytocin. We need that. And just doom scrolling isn't going to do it, and this community is filled with ways to help people. So I may come back to that, but I think I've reached my limit here. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, I'm Brooke Sidner-Curran with Move to Learn. On any given day, we support about a third of Alexandria City public school students. Our through line, students learn more when they sit less. So in classrooms, gosh, what does that look like? Well, our classrooms are different. You'll see stationary bikes, under desk cycles, these cool accordion stools, so you can move and learn and not bug your neighbor. We're changing minds. That means talking with educators and leadership about the benefits of movement, mental health, physical health, focus, engagement. And then we're changing lives, making school a place where students feel like that they belong in school, that it's a place they want to be with their friends. It's a big draw, our before and after school clubs. So for the things that, due to the administration, things that we missed, we too count ourselves lucky that we are not reliant on any federal funding. However, there's a ton of stress. There's no surprise there with our students. You know, some of our students, they're afraid to come to school for themselves personally. Are my parents going to be home when I get home? For schools, budget changes have happened. That's a big problem. You know, funding programs, things have been cut there. Mental health programs, especially, which is so big in our community. And then for nonprofits itself, and I think I can speak for everyone, but please jump in if I don't capture this right. It's really the expectation, or maybe it's our own expectation or the world's expectation, I'm not sure, but doing more with less or wanting to do more. And funding is always an issue in the nonprofit world, so that support is big. For me, movement is my piece for mental health. That's what we also, it's a big thing that we teach our students, that we teach our teachers, and that's kind of how we're changing minds there. I talked about it in the different ways that we're doing that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Your line of work must be extremely tough. How do you deal with resilience in your organization?
Thank you for that. Can you hear me okay?
No.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. So how many of you have heard of OAR of Arlington Alexandria Falls Church? Ooh, hands, yes. Okay, great. Well, OAR's been around since 1974. In 2024, we turn 50, and the dream of OAR is not to have to exist 50 years from now, because we don't want to be needed anymore. We work with people who are impacted by the criminal legal system, so think, folks who are incarcerated, coming out of incarceration, folks who are doing diversion and alternative sentencing so that they don't end up incarcerated, and their families. In a year, we work with about 2,000 people in the community, so this is not a small number of folks. And so, of course, with everything that's happened in the less than a year, though it feels like an eternity, there's been incredible shifts in funding, shifts in reentry and health and wellness, and all these elements that are really critical for our folks to be successful. And so because we are very much about direct community contact, when policy and these things shift, our folks get affected immediately. For some people that we walk alongside with, folks are really excited to be able to dream again. Folks are really excited to be able to share their gifts with the community again. And that is really what OAR is about. So we see our folks as a gift to the community, as folks not a problem to fix, but as a full human being to be celebrated and loved. So at OAR we talk a lot, rather than resilience, we talk a lot about justice, joy, and liberation. And so let me tell you a little bit more about that. So liberation looks like being with people where they are, having them decide what success, what joy, what happiness, what stability feels like for them, and us walking alongside them. Joy also means our amazing ambassador of happiness and therapy dog, Charlie. So we have a therapy dog that goes into the jails to do programs, as well as welcomes people back into the community in our office. If you want to know what he looks like, he's delicious. And there's a picture out there of him later on when you head out. So I'll stop there and just say that ultimately OAR is all about joy, justice, and liberation. And no matter who ends up being where and what policy shifts, as long as we do that and follow that and be in community, we're going to make it through. Thank you.
So you'll see a few of us in the class.
Yes, please.
Last but not least, please, Soraya, if you wouldn't mind, please also share a little bit about the Dream Project.
Thank you so much. So I have, as I mentioned, been in the area for a very long time, an Arlington resident for 20 years. I recently joined the Dream Project as the executive director about a month ago. After about 20 years working in lobbying and public affairs in DC, left corporate America because I had the privilege to run for and win a seat on the Arlington County School Board. And I ran in 2024 thinking that I would have Kamala Harris as president and knowing that there would be some hard fights to fight, but never quite imagining that this would be the world I would be living in. So I really, for me, this chapter of life, my sons are 11 and 13, and I kind of had a moment where I had to realize, my kids need me more at home. I want to be more present in my community, even though I always volunteered in every campaign every year in Virginia, as we know, we have an election. But I really wanted to give back to the community. I was privileged to serve on the school board, and now the Dream Project has been a wonderful opportunity, I think, to really meld my background in policy, immigration, and in the nonprofit space. My first role as ED was as ED of the Hispanic National Bar Association many years ago. And so this is, I think, a really kind of full circle moment for me. And for as far as the school board goes, of course, we have 28,000 kids in the county that we serve. 30% Latino, about 40 to 45% brown and black kids, 15% kids that have a disability or are in special education, and 30% English language learners and growing, so that population is actually growing. So that's to give you just a bit of a sense of why there's so much at stake for APS, given the current administration. And with the DREAM project, we were created 15 years ago by a mentor of mine, Emma Violan Sanchez, also a former school board member, the first Latina to serve on the Arlington County School Board. Yeah. And so Emma created this as an organization 15 years ago to provide scholarships and support to so many immigrant students who were either undocumented or because of their immigration status were barred from accessing so much financial aid for college, and we're also just unaware of so many opportunities. For so many of us who are first gen in college, you know that there's no one to walk you through college applications, how to fill out a FAFSA form. And so that kind of scholarship support, financial support, mentorship, and other support that students may need, not only to get into college, but get through college, is what the DREAM project was created to provide. And we've been doing that for 15 years, very proudly. In terms of what we faced most recently, certainly from the APS standpoint, we're already since last year in litigation with the current administration after they tried to go after our policy that is inclusive and respectful of LGBTQ plus rights. As soon as Trump was elected, of course, we started hearing from our immigrant community, and this is one reason why I wanted to be on the school board as a Spanish speaker who can connect with families. There was real panic in the community from an immigration enforcement standpoint, so we were the first school district in the area to put forth a safe schools policy to shut down schools and basically have in policy that no school will turn over anyone to the immigration and the resident coming to observe. Yes, and a lot of process and training for our whole staff in that respect. At DREAM Project, one month into the job, I'm sitting with my family on New Year's Eve, and I start getting these calls and emails that DOJ has filed in court to have requested a judge declare our Virginia DREAM Act unconstitutional. And then on December 30th, that our AG Miyares has filed a motion in support of this. So if no one files to intervene, a judge could, like that happened in Texas, sign off an order and in-state tuition for undocumented immigrants and many other kinds of immigrants is gone immediately. So this was my New Year's Eve, talking with lawyers in a panic mode. This is how they operate, right? In the dark of night, when they think no one's looking, going after the groups and people who have the least support. But in this case, they have support. They had us. They had the DREAM Project, and they had our board. Our board of governors on the plan, because we signed up to be the interveners. So we filed a motion, New Year's Eve, and that case is still ongoing. We're waiting to hear back from the judge basically any moment now, between now and next week. And this is why elections matter, folks. The one job of the AG is to protect us, to protect the citizens and residents of the Commonwealth. And by the way, in-state tuition, these are residents and these are kids and families who pay taxes by our own DREAM Act law. So to protect us in the Commonwealth, and he failed us. So thank God we have a new administration coming in, and I am very confident that we will have a different kind of AG and a different kind of governor, but that's what we're in the middle of these times.
Right now, we'd love to hear from the audience. Any questions you'd like to ask? We've got two mics, little mics. You want one over there? Okay.
What's one way you think building resilient in individuals can impact their community or society as a whole?
I'd like to take that one.
I'll take it, because this actually, I do have sort of a personal anecdote from the last year that I think relates to this. Last year was a hard year for so many of us. I kind of really had a tough summer where everything was coming to a head. I was still kind of in corporate America and my school board role, and just what we're seeing, the world we're living in, and it wasn't even nearly this bad. I think that first you start with yourself, and in my case it was family. It was I couldn't be there even for my family until I was there for myself and took care of myself. I was going through some health issues that I didn't realize were health issues because I hadn't gotten checked out, and all I knew was that I was like physically not doing well and therefore not doing well in anything. So it took me a minute, but once and then I continued sort of having healthcare, having regular checkups, and it turns out that yeah, there were a number of things that I needed to take care of. So I think caring for yourself first, so you can care for those around you.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that was mentioned earlier is that we're in the nonprofit sector, and many of us have experienced some issues with funding from the federal government as well, also from folks, individual donors who are nervous about their funds, and also foundations. They're switching the way they do things, and so we've lost multiple foundations who are unable to fund us anymore. So I think from a nonprofit sector, in addition to all of you amazing OER donors who are here, there is always a need for more funds, right? The need is greater now with programs being cut, with things being shifted in certain ways, and so we can always use additional support. So learning more about the nonprofits in the community, volunteering with them also, but also financially contributing is really another key of what people can do for us.
Yeah, we always say to learn that a donation isn't is a gift to the community, not begging somebody for money, but it's really an investment in the community and what you can do. I know I feel centered and grounded when I'm out in the community, when I'm talking with families, when I'm talking with our teachers, educators, students, parents, about, obviously I'm a movement person, about movement. But for me, ironically, it's sometimes doing nothing, and that echoes what you were saying, just stopping for a second, breathing for a second, and maybe just looking out the window, walking someone else's dog, because my dog recently passed away, and I literally will offer to walk people's dogs. But those are the things that help me be back in the community and feel better.
In Virginia, do formerly incarcerated people have their voting rights restored?
I'm so glad you asked. The answer is not necessarily. So that's another way that community members can support organizations is through advocacy. So this is one advocacy point that would be ideal. So not necessarily. So if folks are still there is people who come out who can restore their voting rights right away. There are folks who are on probation. They have to meet the probation requirements first before they can do that. But I want you to know that there are states out there in this incredible country that people do not lose their rights to vote while people are incarcerated. So it'd be amazing if Virginia would move to have people who are incarcerated not lose their right to vote.
Can I just ask a quick follow-up question? So when the political environment feels hostile to your mission, like how do you sustain hope for your clients? How do you sustain hope for them?
Yeah, it's tough. It's been difficult. One of the things that we're famous for at OER is that the majority of the people, 100% of the people who work for OER have some sort of direct connection to the participants, whether they have substance use disorders, whether they have mental health needs, whether they have been incarcerated, or they've been marginalized through racial injustices. So we all have 100% of us have a direct connect. And so we hire folks who are coming out of incarceration as well, who were participants before. So the environment needs to be a place where people are going to be able to find joy. And so if you all want to come and take a tour at OER, we're right across the street from the courthouse, next to the AMC movie theater. So enjoy a movie and then come visit us. And the beautiful thing is we just renovated the space and we call it a welcome center. And so when folks are returning from incarceration back into the community, they come to a space that has music, that feels airy, that feels free, with beautiful paintings, with really gorgeous colors, with snacks, with dresses, with outfits that they are brand new for them. And we care for them and we support them and we journey with them. And so I find hope when I look at the people who are coming from the facilities and think about how amazing they are. And had there been another choice for them, had there been another opportunity that the system had not failed them, they would be in a completely different place right now.
Any other questions from the audience?
First, thank you very much, Congressman Beyer, for creating this environment for us as women to feel safe and to have our hope rekindled in this, I would say, relatively dark days. My question is on the immigration. So we saw what has happened in Minneapolis. It's one of the states in the United States. So it means that we could also start to feel the heat. Is there a way in which, pathways or ways in which there could be recourse should one of us see the heat coming in our neighborhoods? Is there a hotline that we can call? What can we do? Because at the end of the day, we are our brothers and sisters' keeper. And we wouldn't want it to be a little too late. So thank you.
I can take a first stab and speak at least for Arlington and let others speak for me, other areas. In Arlington, thank you for your question. There's one thing that's important to know is that in Arlington County, the Arlington Police Department does not work with ICE. So that's very important. That's now county policy. So just number one, you can call police if something is wrong or if there are federal agents or someone's harassing you. There's actually a case in which that was really helpful that our local police showed up. So that's first. Second, there are a lot of, and we can connect you, Legal Aid Justice Center has a number of trainings and just materials online. So LAJC, Legal Aid Justice Center. And those I think anyone can use in the region. ACLU does as well. And the National Immigration Law Center have really good summaries on their websites in terms of one, like literally trainings, or you can organize. And then I would also highlight a local organization, WOFA. If you're not a member, here's my plug for WOFA. We have some incredible trainings in addition to just rallies and meetings and actionable things you can do. Like one of the things is get trained. They have other things. You can accompany people to appointments. You can run groceries. You can have other things. But I think the trainings are the most important. And a rapid response team, yes. Like if someone's in a crisis, like someone just got taken or someone has they're at an appointment and something happened, you can call. Right here, Dr. Lisa, you can stand up, yeah. There you go, so you can come to Dr. Lisa.
WUFA has a rapid response team, and I have a phone number that I can give to you.
No, I put in a good word for WOFA. We of Action is WOFA, and they are doing a great deal with the immigrant community, and they have put together a rapid response team. They would love to have more people on it, and they put out a phone number that you can call if something's going on. Their plan is to get people there. So it's happening in Arlington.
Yeah, it's already working.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that question. Did we have another person? Another question?
We had another question back here.
No. And then one up front.
Good evening. Thank you for hosting this event. I'm overwhelmed that the room of all these people that are here is remarkable. My question is there a possibility to have, I don't know, with the audience here or the staff, the panelists up there, to have a mentoring group for shadowing, whether it's learning about life skills, reading, math, volunteering jobs, job skills, just anything at all to start?
Well, I will make a pitch. When you leave here tonight, we have a table, Alexander Tutoring Consortium has a table, and on there are 2 cards. Please take them. One is if you want to help us volunteer to teach a child. We have 8 kids right now, 1st and 2nd grade, who need a tutor. The other card has contact information for Volunteer Alexandria, Volunteer Arlington, Volunteer Fairfax, QR codes. and you can go on and look to see what is available right now. As far as, and that might be a good place to go to try to figure out, are there mentors available, or can I participate somehow and become a mentor? So I would probably recommend you start with those, and they're going to list the nonprofits that are already in existence and have current need.
You meant like in terms of us here in this group? I mean, I would love that. I've had the pleasure to meet these ladies, and like, yeah, absolutely. I would want to hopefully work with you all in some capacity and members of the audience. So certainly feel free to, I'm on all the LinkedIn's, everything. So in terms of meeting up, sure, like count on that. Feel free to, connect that way. Given that what was just mentioned, I would also be remiss if I didn't say that the Dream Project also has mentorship. So how about this? If anyone would like to sign up to be a mentor of some of our scholars, and then also work together to mentor each other. How about that? I would love that.
I believe we have time for one last question.
We're going to take two last questions.
Thank you. Elizabeth mentioned in her opening remarks that her organization was 50 years old. She hoped not to need to exist in another 50. I'm wondering if each of you have a strategic plan for the next year or 5 years that you could share with us. Where do you see your organization? How do we get through the General Assembly session in the next 60 days, the midterm election at the end of the year? Give us some positive incentive to look forward to and how we might help you share your vision to get where you need or want to be.
Well, I know that we have just starting our 5-year strategic plan. So yes, advocacy is definitely one of those pieces that we are learning more about and wanting to go to Richmond in order to make some change in how we all think, and obviously locally as well, in the school board and such, city council. There's all, the pieces there, the programmatic pieces of expansion, of course, the fundraising pieces there, and communications. I forget who was talking about communications on this side, but yes, the communications is always a huge part, because what we can do together by talking with each other is how we get stuff done. So,
our goal is there are about 600 kids in the city of Alexandria who could use a book buddy, and our goal is to get all 600 of them a book buddy. We are going to be at 325 next year. So, it sounds micro, we're hyper local, and it's micro and it's concrete, but it's a huge impact. And I think that's something I would send you with today. You don't have to, do something on a global level and make a difference. You can do something tiny and make an enormous impact, intergenerational impact. So, and also I think early on it was get out of your comfort zone, perhaps. Think about it, consider getting out of your comfort zone, and maybe volunteer somewhere where you never really saw yourself before.
I think, one of the things we learned during the pandemic, at the crisis, at the start of it, was that strategic plans kind of sit back when you have an emergency and when you're in crisis, which I feel like it's kind of where we are right now. And so we definitely have a strategic plan, but what we find is that we are looking at what we need to do right now and for the next 5 days, for the next 7 days. I mean, so it's a very small kind of moment, which is good. It keeps you centered, I think, too. One other piece that I wanted to offer in addition to other options is we have an action network for individuals who are incarcerated and family members, etc. And they developed a 40-point agenda that they want passed and moved forward. And that is how OAR advocates and moves through the community by the specific things that they would like us to do. So one of them is to reinstate parole in the state of Virginia. That would be key. Another is to ban the box in all applications, so remove the box that asks you if you've been incarcerated in all applications. And so those are the things, those are just two of the things that they have asked us to fight for. And so we would love help in having you all join us to advocate for the things that they are specifically asking for, so we know how to move in the world.
Yes, we do have a strategic plan. Actually, it was completed just before I came on board, so now I'm going to be the ED that sort of carries the baton on for the next 5 years. I think one of the key centerpieces, and by the way, this is found on our website, dream-project.org. The key component, I think, of our strategic plan or centerpiece is that we want to go from right now, we have, 100 scholars, providing them scholarships worth about $4,000 per year. We want to move that to, in the next 5 years, 200 scholars and paying the full tuition of a community college education, which ends up being about $6,500 a year. So yes, thank you. Yes, I think it's a good goal. Right now, of all our scholarships, 83% of our kids rely on in-state tuition to go to school, to access higher education. So my top priority right now, to the point of strategic plan, it's still a part of it, but it's moving a little slower because we have to fight this case, right? We have to make sure that our Virginia Dream Act doesn't disappear, because that's 83% of our kids who would be impacted. And of course, our resources would then be drained. So that's the main thing. And of course, we have other objectives that have to do, as I'm sure many of my colleagues here do, around governance. We've, professionalized our staff, our team, really elevating our board to be a governing board. Communications, also developing program areas that are very specific. So scholarship, a CTE program and scholarships for students who want to pursue career and technical trades, and mentorship and MNT programs. So those are sort of the very focused pillars to stay in those lines and keep moving forward for young people.
Thank you. All right, well, can we please give our panelists a round of applause? And before I turn it over to the Congressman, please give yourselves a round of applause for sharing your question. And to really close us out, Congressman Beyer.
Thank you, Nene. Wonderful role models for me and for many of us here. So thank you very, very much. First of all, the four wonderful people that do all of our constituent services are here tonight. Noah Simon, our chief. Richard Torres is running around with a microphone. Barkat Wali, and somewhere Salam Maryland. So they're all very good. So if you have a problem, please call them. That's what they live for. And if it's not federal, if we can't, we know all the folks in Richmond, we know all the folks in City Hall and Arlington, Alexandria. We can usually connect you to the right places. So please do that. Even when we can't pass any bills, we can still help you with the things that you need to do. Number two, I just want to put some numbers on it. We talked about what the Department of Justice has done and the Attorney General in terms of this consent decree. 13,000 kids right now are getting the in-state tuition that would be denied that's taken away. That's an awful lot of children in the one state that now get, and these are all Virginia taxpayers living in Virginia. They're not freeloaders. It's a really important thing. And I believe the number is 40,000 now in high school that would qualify if it's not taken away. So it's enormous real life impact. The next thing I like to say is that if you're looking for something to do, I think Lisa talked about Volunteer Alexandria, Volunteer Fairfax, Maryland. There are 40, our new governor has 4,000 appointments to boards and commissions. There's a blue book you can get online. I told Abigail I want to be on the core board. But there's all kinds of really interesting things. Humanities board, community college board, foundations. Raise your hand. Candy King is to be the new Secretary of the Commonwealth. She was a delegate from Prince William County. I promise you, in the short run, everybody wants to be on the UVA board. But in the middle run, Candy's going to be looking for volunteers, especially women, who are willing to raise their hand and say, I'd like to do something statewide. My first public thing was on the Commonwealth Transportation Board in the 1980s. And it was an amazing experience, going all over the state and learning about transportation issues that served me well later on. Also, we talked a lot about direct service. There's also board service. We have 1,000 nonprofits in the 8th Congressional District. So volunteer to be on a board. I know Lisa's board, a big deal, you're on the board. By the way, usually what they want from board members is people who are willing to raise money. So don't be afraid of that. Having raised a lot of money in my life, I've discovered a long time ago, nobody gives money that they don't want to give. Our job is just to ask. It's inviting people to be part of something that's larger than themselves. They may not be able to tutor a child, but they can write a $50 check, and that makes a difference too. And the bottom line, though, is that it all comes back to us. I'm very, very grateful for your spending a Thursday evening with these terrific women and role models, and let there be example for each one of us to go out and do everything we can. This is how we resist, and even if we like this president, this is how we make our communities ever stronger.